From Relay FM, this is Connected, episode 143. Today's show is brought to you by Encapsula and Blue Apron. My name is Mike Hurley. I am joined by Stephen Hackett. Hello, Stephen Hackett.
Hello, Michael Hurley.
And Federico Vitici. Ciao, Federico.
Ciao, Mike, and hello, people of the world.
Oh, that's a very nice greeting today.
Yeah. I want to say hi to the people. I'm in a good mood today, Mike.
You're a man of the people, Federico.
I hope so.
Stephen?
Yes.
Follow us up.
I've been waiting all week. So you may have seen this. We put it up on the Relay blog late last week, but we are going to be at the App Camp for Girls fundraiser at WWDC. It'll be the first link in the show notes. This is a concert and a fundraiser for them. James Dempsey and the Breakpoints will be playing a show. It's at this great big venue, and there's going to be a section of the venue for a Relay FM meetup. So we're still having our own meetup Monday night. If you have a ticket to that, we will be there. But we're going to also be doing this on Wednesday evening, just because we want to see everybody, and we love App Camp for Girls, and this is a great chance to support them. So you have to have a ticket to it. There's a link in that blog post to buy a ticket to the show. We will be there about 7 p.m. To hang out, and there'll be signs and stuff where to go. We'll be there. And if you're in town for WWDC, even if you don't want to meet us, you don't care about us, you should go buy a ticket for this and go, because App Camp for Girls is wonderful and a really, I think, important part of our community that you should support. So go check it out. Like I said, it's the first link in the show notes, and hopefully we will see you there.
Yeah, please come. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have a lot of fun. And as Stephen said, and I cannot state this enough, App Camp for Girls is awesome, and they deserve your support. And all of the proceeds of this meetup will be supporting them. So please, please, please go and get a ticket, and you'll see us there, which might be nice for you.
Yeah. So we're going to get into a lot more hardware stuff after the break, but I did want to talk kind of separately about the Siri speaker and iPad coming to WWDC, new notebooks potentially. And the reason I'm putting this in follow-up is because it happened in the past. And we had some questions on Twitter about, well, when is the last time Apple actually did hardware at WWDC? If you go back, 6, 7, 8 years ago, the iPhone 3G, 3GS, and 4 were at WWDC. But the last real one, I think, is like 2012 when the Retina MacBook Pro was announced and then shipped basically in that summer time frame. It was expensive. It was only the 15 inches out of the top of the line. Pretty good keynote if you haven't seen it. There's Phil Schiller does a good job. He puts his finger up to it, show how thin it is. People freak out. A year later, in 2013, we had the Mac Pro teaser. Of course, the very famous "Can't innovate anymore, my fill in the blank" line from Schiller that maybe they've come to regret since then. But that was 2013, and the notebooks got updated, and there were some airport products. But really, since 2012, 2013, there hasn't been hardware at WWDC. And it's easy to understand why, right? It's the software show. They have to get through, at least Mac OS and iOS, and then watchOS and tvOS if there's stuff there. It's a very busy keynote, and they try to keep it to 2 hours. But there is some precedent for hardware at WWDC, and so it's not completely crazy to think that there may be something coming out. But like I said, we will get to that here in a couple minutes. But I kind of wanted to set this part of that conversation aside a little bit. Speaking of software, though, our last episode, which came out the end of last week, so we just spoke, was about Federico's incredible iOS 11 for iPad video and article. And so, Federico, I wanted to see how it was going, how the response has been, and kind of how your feelings are, a couple days later.
It went really well, and I'm really happy that people appreciated the video and the vision, and it was kind of amusing seeing the tweet from people who, after watching the video and reading the story, they tried to do something on their iPads and it didn't work, like in the concept, and because sort of the brains were broken. So that was very amusing, and I'm really happy that a lot of people either sent a tweet or an email and said this makes sense because it's not the usual concept that you put together just to show off some graphical skills, and that is the goal. Even last year with Sam, we tried to create a concept that is reasonable and that tries to think about not just how awesome something would be, but also about the limitations. So it's both about creating and also about setting boundaries for ourselves. And the fact that people notice that makes me really happy. There's been some, and I think it comes with the territory, some negative feedback, and especially on YouTube, because the video was on the trending page, so you open yourself up to these comments from these users, which of course I cannot repeat them on the show, but they don't. It's not that I don't care. I think they're kind of funny. Because obviously these people are there not to start a discussion, which is what I wanted to do with the concept, but just to troll you or to just to be the worst of the internet. So that's fine, and it's kind of funny. There was some other type of feedback that I feel like I want to respond. Some folks have said that the Finder doesn't make any sense. And that the iPad doesn't need a Finder, and that file management is a thing of the past, which of course I deeply disagree with, and I feel like I try to convey this in the story, which is I don't want Apple to make the iPad like the Mac. And if your argument is that if the iPad gets a Finder, or if the iPad gets better file management features, then just use a Mac, that argument doesn't make any sense, because you could say, well, just use a Windows PC, I think they're not mutually exclusive. The iPad getting better file management features and being able to coexist with the Mac. And also because as I try to express in the story, the iPad already has file management features that are just scattered throughout the OS. I would like to ask, all these people that say the Finder doesn't make any sense, if they think iCloud Drive makes sense, or if document pickers and providers make sense, if, all these other file-based features that Apple already has, if they make any sense. And all I'm arguing for is to unify them and to actually make them easier, because I think that the system we have now is actually too difficult to manage. So if anything, I'm arguing for simplification. And that was the main point. There's another comment that I got a lot, which is that the video was useless because it came out too late and we didn't give Apple the time to copy, which is both amusing and interesting from sort of what people think of us, in the sense that I believe that some folks think that it's our goal to get hired by Apple or to give Apple ideas, and that the concept should come out in December. And those are three separate things. Like, of course, I personally, I mean, I cannot speak for Sam, but personally, I don't want to be hired by Apple. I just want to start a discussion about the iPad and about iOS. And I think that Apple had at least some of these discussions a long time ago. I don't think I'm smarter than the people who work at Apple, the engineers and the designers that actually discuss these features in practice and in context. They actually make them. I don't think I'm smarter than those folks that had these discussions months ago, years ago, maybe even. And also, from my perspective as a user, it's impossible to create a concept and to come up with wishes and things I would like to see in October or in November, because I've only been using the stable version of iOS for 2 months. These are things that you need to work with them for a long time to understand the limitations. And I never liked those concepts that they come out 2 weeks after a new version of iOS has shipped, because you don't have the context and you don't have the knowledge and you don't have the experience accumulated with months of usage. And so the reason why our concepts they tend to come out in April or May is because I like to take my time. It's not my goal to be hired by Apple. It's not my priority to give Apple ideas, and I just want to start a discussion and to give people ideas, or to show the potential of something, regardless of what Apple thinks, what Apple is doing, and if Apple is working on those features or not. And finally, there's some people who really hated the song. And I get that this is like a thing on YouTube, that some people really don't like some types of background music. There was a comment that said that the music looked like it was from 50 Shades of Grey, which I thought was very funny, because I think if the video can elicit the same response as the book and the movie, well, that's great, you know? So I thought that was funny.
Please, this is good for you, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever you need.
Yeah.
Some people just really like the iPad.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
An uncomfortable amount.
So overall, I'm really happy, because we got, a lot of folks have been super kind, sharing the video and the links, but just really the main point is if the majority of people are saying this concept makes sense, because I could see the iPad having these features, and I understand the quote unquote design process that went into this and the limitations and the potential problems, that mission accomplished. So I'm satisfied.
Good. No, yeah, it's really great, and this is what's going to happen when you open the floodgates to the wider internet. I think.
Yeah.
Right. Like people that are maybe less in tune with the type of thing that you're trying to get across. Right. People that are not familiar with Mac stories, which is what happens when you get hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube, right? Like lots of those people are never going to have heard of you before, and so they don't know your intention, right? And I think that's what you've come across there. But I guess the key is, like, for the audience that you are targeting, did they understand it? And I think they did, right? I think that's overwhelming.
Yeah, I think so. And really, if from the people who sort of understood the concept, if the main cause of discussion is file management and the Finder, I think that's a success overall. Yeah. Because we may disagree on the particular need for a Finder, but at least we're both on the same page that iOS for iPad could be so much more. Then we can argue on specific features, but overall, I think most people that understood the concept were on board with the idea that the iPad could be more and could be different from the iPhone. So, yeah.
But Stephen, you've been busy as well. Also, in the last week or so, you've created a new membership-focused newsletter for 512 Pixels, and I was kind of wondering, what was your motivation to go ahead and do this? So it is the 512 Pixels membership newsletter. You can pay $5.12 a month, or $51.20 a year. Like, of course, that makes a lot of sense. And this is like a new thing that you're working on, I guess. In like how there is Club Mac Stories and how there is Jason's membership at 6 Colors. What made you want to go ahead and do this?
Yeah, well, I should say that Federico actually came up with the pricing. That was all his idea and not mine. So thank you to both of you. You've been very influential and helpful in this process.
I don't think I did anything, but I appreciate it.
It was mostly Federico.
Yeah, it was mostly Federico, I think.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so I mean, 512 Pixels is going to turn 9 years old this fall. And in kind of reflecting on that and thinking about the past of the website and the future, I want to continue to do more with it. Mm-hmm. It has spun off several other projects. I'm doing a lot of series on the site. I have the YouTube channel now. So Federico, I feel your pain about like random YouTube commenters. It's the worst. Yeah. But the kind of the heart of it is that to take 512 Pixels to the next level, to continue doing it for the next decade at the level I want to do it, that's just going to require direct support. That it is a big investment of time and energy, and one that I'm happy to make. And like I said in the blog post announcing, like, even though it's almost a decade old, it still feels like fresh and new to me. And I think it's because it is more than just a technology blog. It has become sort of like a trail of breadcrumbs through the last 10 years of my life. And I can't ever imagine not doing the site, but it doesn't do much in the way of revenue and income, and I need that to change. So the feedback's been really good so far. A lot of people jumped on it immediately. Something like 60% of members are annual, like right off the bat. Like, people want to support it, which is really great.
People just want that sweet discount, man. That's what it's all about.
It is. There is a discount if you sign up for the annual membership. But it felt like it was time to do more with it. And so, like you said, I'm doing the newsletter. It'll be monthly. I don't have I don't know what sort of caffeine Federico is ingesting to get one out the door every week, but and it's just me. I don't have a team, so I felt like I could do once a month. I feel like I can do a really good job with that. The first one goes out Thursday. It includes an Apple history column I'm doing called Time Machine. It has this month I have a guest post by Casey Liss that the two of you are not going to like, but that's kind of
I'm not
the point.
straight. I'm not reading it. I'm just not going to read it.
You're going to be upset
I've
about
already
it.
been told by multiple people that I'm not going to enjoy this, so I assume what it's already about, and I don't want it.
Oh no.
Yeah, but it's fine. It's his opinion, and it's a really great column. I'm excited to share that on Thursday.
I'm just going to say that your customer sat levels for your membership will be below the charts from me and Federico for your first issue. So.
Yeah, so there's that. There's a review of a weather app that I'm using that I really like, and weather apps are really fascinating. So kind of talking about that whole little corner of the App Store. So once a month you'll get a newsletter, and you'll get advanced screenings of future YouTube videos, which I know I'm overdue on. I haven't done one because I've been working on this. I will rectify that as soon as WWDC's over. I already have one ready to go. I just need to shoot it. So that's the membership, and I'm excited to be able to do more. I'm excited to have a direct relationship with a subset of readers, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for everybody.
Yeah, people should go check it out. Where can they go to sign up?
Yeah, so 512pixels.net/membership, and all the benefits and everything are on that page. And get in touch if you have any questions.
Today's show is brought to you in part by our friends over at Incapsula, the multi-function content delivery network that boosts the performance of your website, protects it from denial of service attacks, and secures it from bad guys, whilst ensuring high availability. Over 100,000 organizations trust Incapsula every single day, from huge Fortune 500 companies all the way down to one-person websites. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do, Incapsula can help protect you. They have all the resources that you're ever going to need at your disposal to make sure that your website loads quickly, even if something bad is happening. They have a 24/7 operations team, so you have additional help there if you need to take advantage of it. And you also get personal account management backed up by the best service level agreement in the business. They are top notch over at Incapsula. You're going to be well protected, your site is going to be lightning fast, and you're going to have all the support you could ever wish for. As a listener of this show, you can get 1 whole month of service for free, so you can go ahead and try it out. All you need to do is go to incapsula.com/connected. That's incapsula.com/connected. This is where you can find out more about Incapsula's service and claim your free month. Thank you so much to Incapsula for their support of this show and Relay FM.
Apple has introduced a new ad campaign, and I feel weird covering ad campaigns as a topic, but this one is really interesting. You can find it online at apple.com/switch. On Apple's YouTube channel, there's a new playlist, and it is a campaign really built around the idea of switching from Android to an iPhone. And Mac users or Apple users of a certain vintage will remember that the Switch campaign has actually been reused. So that was the campaign, I guess, in like the early 2000s, getting people to switch from Windows to the Mac. And they had all those talking heads, including with the girl named Ellen.
Everyone's favorite.
Who seemed to be super baked. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but they're reusing it. So there's a link in the show notes. Ed Cormany, a friend of mine, had a joke about that, and a link to a web internet archive Wayback Machine URL to the original apple.com/switch. But the new one is really nice. So it's a very nice, like, colorful modern web page, has the videos in there, and kind of has, 7 or 8 different sort of angles into the idea of switching from Android to the iPhone.
Yeah, this sort of stuff's interesting to me because it kind of makes me remember that, like, oh yeah, there are way more Android devices. What did Google say? Something like, are there 2 billion active Android devices right now? And it's like, yep, that's a lot of Android devices. And it's funny that Apple is doing a campaign like this, and it's quite aggressive, like with the website and with the videos. And I wonder the motivation that goes into wanting to create something like this, because I think everybody knows about the iPhone. Everyone knows how great the iPhone is. Everyone knows that, like, what is the iPhone still the highest selling phone, right? Single unit phone. Like, it sells more than Samsung still. So, but it's funny to be like, oh, but they actually do consider themselves to still be in a position where they don't have as much of the market as they would want. Right? Because this isn't really iPhone that we're talking about here. It's iOS, I guess.
Yeah, so the iPhone, Apple has the most profit out of the smartphone industry, and that's by like some huge margin. But the iPhone is the single best-selling handset. So there are a bunch more Android phones, but they're splintered across hundreds of, if not more, devices. And I agree with you that like the positioning of this is a little odd, because I think we all think of the iPhone as being the dominant player, because according to some metrics it is, but in some other metrics it's not. And I think in mind share, at least like, I mean, obviously in our circles, but even like out in the world, like in the States at least, I see iPhones everywhere. It's kind of the default phone. But Apple's not playing the underdog here. Like if you go back and look at those way back pages, there is a little bit of an underdog tone to it, right? That, hey, Windows is this big popular thing, but the Mac's better. And kind of introducing you to the Mac for the first time because people just hadn't seen one before or didn't know anything about it. But that's not the tone on this page. This page, it kind of makes some assumptions that you know what a smartphone is.
And that you know what an iPhone is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just kind of showing the things that really highlight the differences between Android and iOS. Not that, hey, this is how you tap it with your thumb. Like, that's great. But more of, these are some very specific things that are different. And for one, I think it works. I think it's pretty well done.
I think it's interesting the features that they've decided to showcase with the big colored sections. So we get the camera, for example. Of course, it's one of the very first sections on the webpage. And of course, it's an iPhone 7 Plus, not an iPhone 7. There's like a half of an iPhone in this section, and it shows the dual lens of the 7 Plus. Then they mention Apple Pay, and to my surprise, the Tips application in another section. And then they focus on privacy, security, and messages. So they don't say iMessage. They say the Messages app, which I thought was interesting because they don't talk about the protocol. They talk about the app on your phone. And they say the Messages app, it lets you hail rides, it lets you book restaurants and, shoot lasers. And of course, they're talking about the effects and iMessage apps. And then they also say, and of course, you can use other messaging apps like WeChat, WhatsApp, or Facebook Messenger. So I think it was interesting that Apple doesn't say, well, we have iMessage on iOS. It's messages. And besides the Tips app, Apple also wanted to kind of focus on how easy it is to use an iPhone and to get help if you don't know how to use an iPhone or if you have any problems. And so they bring up the official Apple support app that is now on iOS. And they even have a mention of the Twitter handle. They literally say there's also an Apple support app and a dedicated Twitter handle at Apple support. So it's like they're actually pointing people to Twitter.
Yeah, they also put privacy up there, right? Like protecting personal information and making sure there's no viruses and stuff like that. Like that's also a big part of it. And they, in the ad campaigns, like 5 or 6 little 15-second ads that are probably going to show up as YouTube pre-rolls. One of those is focused on privacy, and it's my favorite one of them. It's very funny. Like the ads are like your phone on the left, iPhone on the right, and it's like gray contrastive color, right? It's like a split down the middle, and it's like something sucks on the left-hand side, and then you get moved over to the iPhone side, and it's great, right? Like that's kind of the way to do it. It's a simple campaign, but I think it works. But my favorite one is the privacy one, where like the guy's snooping over the shoulder of the other guy, and he just walks over there, just walks over to the other side, and the other guy can't follow him. I think it's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's good. I did want to kind of back up for a second something Federico said about the camera item. This comes on the heels of, I think it was like just last week, Apple put up one of these pages about photography on the iPhone, and their YouTube channel has been flooded with these almost tutorial videos on like how to take a picture with the camera app, how to do a selfie, how to do the depth effect. It's a very educational series. It's reminiscent of the original iPhone ads. Do y'all remember those? That basically it'd like just be a phone on a white screen and it'd show you how maps worked, and it'd be a television ad, 30 seconds of Google Maps. That camera thing is a little bit like that, I think, but Apple's really leaning into this more and more in a world where the Samsung phones and the Google Pixel have cameras that, there are differences, but are more or less as good as the iPhone, right? They're in the same arena. And Apple's really leaning into all the stuff they can do with theirs, and they're doing it with the Plus, which we know coming off their earnings. The iPhone sales have been trending towards the Plus. The world is realizing that Mike was right, I guess. And they're selling more Pluses in the mix than they ever have. And I would imagine that has a ton to do with the camera. And so that's been a real thing for Apple to lean on, even though the competition is getting better, to say, hey, this is something that we really think is an important part of our phone and that we're really proud of. And I find that interesting. They keep coming back to it. Again, it continues to be the Plus phone. Whatever this new phone is in the fall, this unicorn phone is going to be dual lens again. This is an important part of Apple's strategy with the iPhone to kill off the end of the point and shoot era, and to have people, especially with the Plus, be equipped to take really good photos. And I mean, it is after the header saying, will it be easy to switch to the iPhone, in which they talk about the Move to iOS app on the Google Play Store, the next stripe down is the camera. Like, it is a super important thing for them. But what I found sort of equally interesting, I want to see what the two of you think about this, is that the fitness stuff is not on here. So there's nothing about the Apple Watch on this page, which I get, but there's nothing about like the health app or the step counting the phone can do. And that's been a part of this sort of thing in the past, right? They had the big health push. Do you think it just didn't make the cut because there's not enough room, or like I just found it interesting that it was gone? It wasn't here.
That the Apple Watch's unique selling point is health and fitness. It's like, even though the iPhone can track some of this stuff, if you say the iPhone can do it all, then it's going to detract from the Apple Watch, right? Like, it makes sense. There's like, if you imagine the marketing funnel, like the journey, the customer journey, after you've bought an iPhone, you start getting a bunch of advertisement and messages about buying an Apple Watch and why you should do that, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense to put that Apple Watch on this page right now, because it's like, oh, you like all this health and fitness stuff, we also do this other thing. It's like another $300. Like, do you want to get into this whole ecosystem? I think that it is overall a net negative for this campaign, right? To be like, buy this new phone, then buy this other thing. Like, I think it makes sense to try and hit people with that afterwards, which I reckon that they probably will do. So they keep kind of the health and fitness stuff for an Apple Watch campaign, because that's what sells that device. So you want to kind of focus on that, right? Like that it's on this device other than it's in the one you already own.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. The environment makes it on here. I guess that's true for all their devices, but that's a good point, that it's sort of a step removed, maybe. See what I did there? A step removed from the sort of switch to iPhone mentality, but no, I think it's a compelling campaign.
Yeah, it definitely is. We were talking about the iPhone and kind of the dual camera stuff. There's been a bunch of part leaks over the last couple of days about the iPhone and the iPad, and you take this stuff with a grain of salt. A lot of it has come from this Twitter account that I've never heard of before. It is a person by the name of Benjamin Geskin. I'm gonna put.
It's been around lately.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, but like, I don't know. There are names that you've seen before, like Sonny Dixon or EvLeaks or whatever. Like, they're people that jump into my mind as like who have provided information before that's kind of come out to be true. They posted a bunch of, I guess these are like molds of the iPhone, right? Like these big metallic, like solid aluminium things that show all the new, like the next iPhone range. So the iPhone 8, presumably, 7S and 7S Plus. So looking at these, and this person's also provided some additional information, right? They're saying that this form, what they're showing is 100% confirmed. That's what's going to be made. and that the Touch ID is not on the back. And they expect it's either going to be obviously in the display, as people have pontificated, or in the power button, right, which locks the phone and turns the phone on and off. That button right there. And if you look at the castings, the molds, whatever you call it, this aluminium thing, one of the pictures that's included in the tweet in the show notes shows all three phones from the side, and the sleep wake button on the side is like twice the size as normal. Right? Is the assumption here, unless it's backwards and that's actually the volume, right? But let's assume that it's not, right? Let's assume that is the sleep wake button, right? That would kind of make sense, right? Why would you make that button bigger unless there was something else going on there?
I don't know, maybe just to make it easier to reach it and to press it. I don't know. I think it makes sense. I'm just struggling to, and now I could be wrong, but the surface area of the button, it seems so narrow to me. And I just wonder if the Touch ID sensor can read enough data for a fingerprint from that kind of button shape.
How much data is needed? I mean, that's what we don't know, right? Like, I don't know
that's what, yeah.
Right, but
I don't know either.
If it's reading like a vertical slice of it, maybe that's just as good, right? Like, it's always unique, I guess, right? Like, it depends how good they've gotten at detecting this stuff accurately, right? That's what I guess this depends. It's just for me, like, I mean, I've said this, we were talking about this weeks ago. We have this whole like Touch ID predictions thing sitting in our document that we'll come back to in September. I really just do not expect, like, I have absolutely no expectation that the Touch ID will be embedded in the display in this phone. It just feels like too big a leap for me. So if it's going to be somewhere, if it's not going to be on the back, my bet would move to the fact that they put it in the sleep wake button.
So you don't think it's going to be under the display?
Not in this one. I think that they'll find a way to do it. It really just feels like such a huge leap. Like, I'm just skeptical of it. You know, it just feels like that is a huge leap in technology that they're taking there, and potentially a really risky one, right? Because there's already so much stuff happening in this phone.
And one that Samsung couldn't make work. And Samsung, you can make fun of them, but I mean, maybe you should for the battery thing, but they know what they're doing engineering-wise. Like, they couldn't make it work 6 months ago. And I don't know if it's in the button or not. Like, I would prefer it to be on the screen. I have no problem with it on the back. Like, I've used phones with that, not a problem for me. But I think ideally it'd be kind of where it is now, just under the glass. But I tend to agree with you that it's got to be really bulletproof for them to do that in a phone that's going to be so high profile and potentially so expensive. Like, it should really work well. But I don't know if it can be, if it's something that can be in the button. I was thinking back, ThinkPads and some other PC notebooks have fingerprint readers that are much more like this than what we have with Touch ID, where it's really just kind of a little dash on the palm rest, and you kind of put your finger on it and it reads it. Or sometimes you kind of roll your finger across it and it does it. So there may be some like technique difference with this where you got to roll your finger. I don't really know, but it's definitely, I think there's more to this than just making a bigger power button. Because remember, this phone is going to potentially be physically smaller than the Plus, and the Plus has the same power button as the non-Plus phone, and people have gotten used to that over 3 years. So why make that change now? Especially in a world where the volume buttons are right across from the power button, you're putting a bigger target there you can accidentally hit. Like, something about it, there's got to be a reason for it besides we just wanted the power button to be bigger, I think.
Yeah, and the shape, if you look at the molds, whatever, it's really somewhere in between the iPhone 7 and the 7 Plus. And I'm really curious to see how this will feel in practice, because I if you remember last year, for almost a month I used an iPhone 7 before being able to buy a Plus, and I liked it, but ultimately it was just too small. And when I upgraded again to the Plus, it just felt so much better and so much more comfortable for me. So I wonder how it'll feel going back to a smaller phone, even if it has a bigger display than the iPhone 7.
I think it's going to be really weird. I don't know if it's being good or bad. I just know it's going to be weird. Because it looks smaller than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And if you look at the picture, it's really not even a centimeter more than a 7.
Yeah.
Judging from this leak on Twitter. So it's definitely smaller than the 7 Plus, but it's only noticeably bigger than the 7.
It makes the 7 Plus look like an iPad.
Almost.
It's always funny. Like, this is a thing. Many Plus Club people will understand this. Plus phones always look bigger in other people's hands.
Yeah.
When I see other people using them, it looks like a dinner tray. But when I'm using it, it's fine. It's very strange. It's a very strange feeling.
Mm-hmm. You know, we have a NSC in the house. My wife uses it and really likes it. In fact, it's not in the show notes, but there was, I think just this morning, an article about like the iPhone SE has the highest customer satisfaction rating according to some new survey than any other smartphone, which is incredible. But you're absolutely right. The Plus is humongous when you see it relative to anything else. But like if you're just by yourself all day with your phone, you get used to it. But yeah, these renderings, I mean, or slabs, whatever they are, very much like this is a 7 size phone, not a Plus monstrosity.
So we have some real-time follow-up from good friend Benjamin Mayo. He works at 9to5Mac, and he sent me a link to a Sony phone that has a fingerprint scanner in the power button. There's going to be a link in the show notes to the video. There's a hands-on video, and it's the Sony Xperia Z5 from a couple of years ago, and it shows how there's indeed a fingerprint scanner and a fingerprint setup going on in the software. So you just place the finger multiple times and it recognizes your fingerprint. So seems to be definitely possible. I was not aware that there were already phones on the market with this kind of scanner in the button on the side. So there you go. Maybe Mike is somewhere in the ballpark again. I won't say it, Mike.
You can't say it yet. You can't say it yet.
I cannot say yet, so I'm just circling around it. But maybe it is possible.
All right, I'll put that link in the show notes. It's a YouTube video, so you can go watch it. But yeah, it's just basically the idea is that now that it's at least possible, right? Again, it's like maybe it's not as reliable, like we don't know, but like technically you can make a fingerprint scanner in a configuration like this. So
yeah.
So there you go. But this isn't all. This same person, Benjamin Gaskin, tweeted some stuff around the 10.5-inch iPad, which is changing the story a little bit about what this device is going to be. So there's a couple of tweets that I'm putting in the show notes. There are some renders of this, and there's some additional information, some measurements. So you can see what those look like, right? So I'll put it in the show notes. But basically, the idea being 10.5-inch iPad Pro, as we know, right? And this is the model that case manufacturers are apparently getting these details as well, because there's been some leaks of some cases and stuff over the last couple of days. The home button exists. There are still bezels on this device, but they're thinner. But the actual iPad itself will be a little bit larger, like physically larger. So they haven't gotten rid of the bezels. The bezels are slimmer, but they're still there. So with a 10.5-inch screen, it's making the device a bit bigger. Now, this is very different to what has been expected, right, from this device.
Yes,
yeah.
we were expecting, I think, the edge-to-edge display with no home button and like a radical new design.
Mm-hmm.
At least I think the last time we discussed the rumors, that was, what people were speculating about. Instead, I mean, this is nice, but it's not bezel-less. The bezels are thinner, and it's very slightly taller, but it looks like an iPad. I mean, it's not this, oh my God, am I holding a piece of glass or a tablet? It looks like an iPad. There's a home button. There's 3 microphones at the top, which is interesting, I guess. And maybe the SIM card slot will be in the bottom right corner of the iPad, but it doesn't look like, visually it's consistent. It's thinner, but it's consistent with the current design.
So I think that this lends additional credence to the idea of this device debuting before September. Because, there was always the question of, like, if they are going to debut the bezel-less design, is it going to come in the iPad before the iPhone? Right? Like, that was always a confusion point. And again, I can see how somebody would hear information about this device and say what has been said, right? Edge to edge.
Yeah.
Right? Like 10.5 inch. Like, I can see how you would get to that point. But from me, personally, like, all right, I don't care. Right? Like, for me, this has always been about a larger screen and what that could potentially facilitate, which is to put everything software-wise that's in a 12.9 into a more manageable in size iPad. And if that's what this is, that's all I want. And what this also does is, especially with it being physically larger, it more easily differentiates this iPad from the $329 iPad, right? Like, you will see these three in a lineup, and they will be different sizes now. And then you can be like, oh, that's the bigger one.
Yeah, and when they're side by side, the bezels really, you can see the difference between the old one and the new one, even if it's not so much bigger. But when you compare them side by side, I imagine on the Apple website, you could tell the difference.
Yeah. But, like, this is physically bigger than the iPad as well that it's replacing, right? Like, it's not just that the screen is bigger, like, the dimensions are larger. So I think that this makes sense for how they will have the product lineup, especially when we talk about what we're about to talk about in a moment regarding the iPad mini. I think, yep, this is it. Like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, the iPhone, I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But, like, everything I'm seeing with the iPad Pro here, I'm like, yeah, this makes so much sense. Considering everything we have heard, and then everything that we think is going to happen. I think that this makes a lot of sense, and this is probably what we're going to get maybe in a couple of weeks' time, which I am very excited about because I want it so bad.
The thing that made me, I don't want to say realize, but that put me like, maybe an iPad is happening at WWDC. It was the beta of iOS 10.3.3, which added 3 new wallpapers. And the thing with the wallpapers may seem minor, but why would you add during the iOS in such a minor release, posted on the developer website just a couple of weeks before WWDC?
That's some good sleuth work there, Federico. 3
new wallpapers. I'm just saying, new wallpaper, new iPad. It makes for, a nice announcement. It looks different, quote unquote, different in the promo material. I mean, it already looks different because the design, is new. But there's a new wallpaper. There's a new beta just a couple of weeks before the event.
So looking at 9 to 5 Mac, these wallpapers are for the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. So this is new iPads, right? Like this, that's what this is for. And if it's for the 12.9-inch, well, then it fits both, right? So now, like, I'm thinking, like, we've questioned, what are they going to do about the 12.9? Well, what they're going to do about the 12.9 is not a lot, right? Like, they'll update the internals of it now because the design is not going to be drastically different, so it doesn't need to change. They can keep the design as it is, update the internals, maybe put a True Tone display in it, and ship both of these. And they only need to put the wallpapers in this one because it's going to be the same screen resolution for both devices, right?
That's the idea.
This is some super sleuthing.
That brings me to my problem, which is, do I want the 10.5 if it looks like this? And if it's got the same specs of the 12.9, or do I want a possible new 12.9-inch iPad Pro? So do I want to stay on the current size that I have, or do I want this other iPad? Because I think the doubt that I have in my mind that I shared a few months ago is, even if it's bigger, I don't think the software will be as comfortable as the big iPad Pro. So I guess it comes down to seeing whatever they announce, maybe WWDC. It seems very likely to me at this point, honestly. And, I just want to try it and see especially how split view and using the software keyboard in split view compares to the big iPad Pro. I'm really curious to see.
I mean, look, if our assumption at this point, which I think we're all holding on to and will refuse to let go, is that WWDC brings a lot of iPad-focused iOS features, it really makes sense for them to say we have new devices. It's like, oh, we're putting all this work into it, but like we're still not going to release any new iPads, right? And I know that it won't be for now, but it is like how they brought a bunch of people into a room and told them that they care about the Mac. It's a similar kind of sign, right? In like we have these new devices, you can buy them now, and you can take advantage of everything the iPad has. And then in a few months' time, they're going to run this great new software, and we promise we care about them.
Yeah, and you could be like, and of course, the new iPad will support the great features of iOS 11, whatever. But in the meantime, it'll ship with iOS 10.3.3, and you get new wallpapers. I could see that happening. Honestly.
Yeah, and they'll say, oh, and there's a public beta coming in a month.
Yes, there's a public beta,
and you can try it then. If you can't wait,
when Federico will already be exhausted. Yeah.
That will definitely make it in. One more piece of iPad news. Boy Genius Report, or BGR. Are they still Boy Genius Report, or are they just BGR now? Burger.
I think in spirit, they are still Boy Genius.
Okay, but they're Burger now. They're just Burger, right? Mm-hmm. That's it. I think that's how you say it. They're reporting that the iPad mini will be no more. They have a source that states the reason as being fierce cannibalism of our own products, and that the iPad mini has been sized out of its own category. Apparently as well, the sales numbers are telling the story. Are we sad about the iPad mini going away?
I don't know. Are we?
There's someone in my house really is, like, badly, like, to the point where I've had to do some when you have somebody in your life who just wants to trash Apple, right? That's their thing, Like, they like to just say how bad the company is, right?
Where are you going with this?
And you, as a fan of the company, feel like you have to stand up for Apple, right?
I get it. Yes. Yes.
Right? Like, you need to fly your team flag. I've been having to do that over the last few days. Adina loves her iPad mini 2, which was my old iPad mini. She loves that device so much, and the idea of the iPad mini going away has been met with fierce criticism in my household. She is very angry about this idea. I have tried to say to her why all of the benefits of going to the bigger iPads, but she's not excited about any of them. She likes this. She is a very small person, and so all of the things that she owns, like bags and stuff like that, are also small. So she likes the smallest iPad that she can possibly have to put into her bag and just to have in her life. So, I mean, we've been looking at the current gen iPad mini, and we're not gonna spend the money on a 128 gigabyte. It's like $400 or something. Yeah,
it's crazy.
We're not gonna buy that. There's any of the refurbs, they are like going so fast right now, it's barely impossible to buy them. But even then, they're not great deals. So I think she's going to be out of luck, and she's kind of now going through the acceptance stage of understanding that if and when her iPad mini dies, because she won't let go of it, she's going to have to go up to a larger size. But that kind of brings me around to say, like, who is the iPad mini for other than Adina? Like, who is buying this, we expect?
Well, we had that question last week from a listener about old iPod Touches, and, do you do that again, or do you get an iPad mini, or do you do, I think, the cheap 9.7-inch iPad? And I think the iPad mini is kind of the same question, right? There are definitely people like Adina who like the small size because it's compact, they can take it with them. My dad is one of those people. He has an iPad mini 2, maybe a 3 now. I think he upgraded to the 3. And he likes it because he can take it to work, and, it's small and light and convenient to have. But there's definitely that use case, like the listener question last week, that people have them for kids. We have an iPad mini 2 in this like ridiculous, military style case, so they don't destroy it. iPad mini 2 for the kids, and they do homework and stuff on it, and it's there's a real use case for it there, but I don't know if that's enough for Apple to keep making them. And I mean, I think the writing's on the wall, right? The quote from the BGR report makes a ton of sense. Mm-hmm. That is in line with what Apple likes to do. Like, I think it was when the iPhone came out and someone asked Apple, is it going to cannibalize the iPod? And they say, well, if one of our products is going to be cannibalized, we want it to be by one of our other products. Right? We want to do that to ourselves, to our own lines of devices, and I think it's clear it's happening to the iPad Mini. They could do the iPod Touch thing, right? They could have it on a long refresh cycle. That's where it's been. Really, that iPad Mini 4 has been around for a long time now. The thing that's kind of gets me is like you said, Mike. The only SKU is expensive, and it's 128 gigs. They don't have a cheap iPad Mini. The cheap iPad now is that 9.7 inch, and I think that answers the question as to what the future is. I think it's, even though there are people who want it, and as a parent, I like that it's small. My kids can use it and they can handle it and everything, but it definitely seems like it's just time's ticking away,
Yeah. But I think, they're not going to keep making a product unless people are buying it. If people are buying it, they're going to keep making it. I'm assuming the sales went down before they reduced the SKUs. They're what's the point in making... I mean, we've had this, right, in the last year or so with the other markets that Apple maybe have gotten out of, right? Like, potentially the display, but we're not sure about that anymore. But, like, routers and stuff like that, right? Like, markets that Apple may be moving away from. And I guess it makes sense that if people aren't buying the iPad Mini, why keep making and selling the iPad Mini?
Mm-hmm.
And because most people's needs can be fulfilled by one of their other devices, right? I think that's the thinking.
Sure. And there's some chicken and egg there a little bit too, right? The iPad Mini doesn't sell well. You make only one SKU for selling. It's expensive and large capacity. It's going to sell even worse.
Yeah, but my assumption is the decision was made before they did this.
Sure.
Right. This is winding down of the inventory.
I think so. I think that's what it is, and I don't think we're ever going to see an iPad Mini 5.
Rest in peace, little friend. You were good to us for so long. We were so impressed with you. You were amazing. There was that. Remember that time? Remember that time when you were as powerful as the big iPad, just a smaller screen? Those were the days. Everybody say goodbye to the iPad Mini. Today's show is brought to you by Blue Apron, the #1 recipe delivery service that has the freshest ingredients. For less than $10 a meal, Blue Apron will deliver to you seasonal recipes with fresh, high-quality ingredients to make delicious, home-cooked meals. Blue Apron set high standards for the ingredients that they source. They build a community of home chefs with their fantastic meals. They all include recipe cards with step-by-step instructions, pre-portioned ingredients as well, so you'll be able to just have exactly what you need, no waste, and you'll be able to prepare all of these meals in 40 minutes or less. When you start with Blue Apron, when you start getting your meals with Blue Apron, you're going to start to learn to cook new things. Maybe stuff you've never cooked before, maybe ingredients that you're not very familiar with. But what's great about all this stuff is it can not only expand your skill set, but can also open your mind to new dishes that you maybe never would have thought about cooking for yourself. And that's what makes Blue Apron so exciting. You can choose from a variety of new recipes every week, or even let their culinary team surprise you and sort it all out for you. And you can set all of your dietary preferences. No recipes are repeated within a year, so you're going to get tons of variety. And right now, you'll be able to cook meals like crispy salmon and roasted potato salad with pickled mustard seeds and creme fraiche sauce, beef teriyaki stir fry with sugar snap peas and lime rice, or maybe even baked spinach and egg flatbread with sauteed asparagus and lemon aioli. Blue Apron delivers to 99% of the continental US. There's no weekly commitment, and their freshness guarantee means that every ingredient arrives ready to cook, or they'll make it right. You will get those deliveries when you want them, and only when you want them, which is awesome. Check out this week's menu and get 3 meals for free with your first purchase, including free shipping, by going to blueapron.com/connected. That is 3 meals for free with your first purchase. You're going to love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So go to blueapron.com/connected today, and we thank them for their support of this show and Relay FM. Blue Apron, a better way to cook.
So we had a listener question from Jeff Fowler on Twitter a couple weeks ago, but I think it's super interesting. So Jeff writes, instead of listing the services you subscribe to, we've talked about that in the past, right? Different cloud services the three of us use for various things. List those that Relay pays for and why. So what we're going to do now is kind of go through some of the services and apps that we use in our respective businesses. So Relay FM, owned by Mike and I, and then
Hello.
Mac Stories. So what we're doing at Relay, I'll start with the business end and then work towards, I guess, the creative end. We use FreshBooks for all of our invoicing. FreshBooks is a sponsor. We have worked with them for a long time, but we paid for their service. We continue to pay for their service. We signed up for them long before they were an advertiser on the network. We use Trello and Pipedrive for some sales management stuff. We're kind of phasing Trello out and moving to Pipedrive, which is how do you describe it, Mike? Like a sales cycle management tool?
Yeah.
Sounds super businessy.
Yeah, it's like a contact database, right? So it keeps all of the people that we work with in the companies, and then we can also manage deals. So as a sponsor signing on, or we're dealing with paperwork, we're able to manage those deals, right? Like it's very businessy, but we were kind of
looking at the screenshots, and it's very enterprisey.
Yep.
This thing.
It's nice though.
The thing is, we kind of need a lot of that now at the
yeah.
size that we're operating at. And we were using Trello, and we were starting to... We kind of baked this into Trello ourselves. Like, it turned out that, like, oh, funnily enough, these products, this is how they look. But I don't think we knew that when we started using Trello for this. And it got to the point where it was like, okay, nobody but Mike knows the names of the people that we're working with or their email addresses. So we need that all to be in one place. So we started looking at that. And then we realized that, we can just move all of this stuff from Trello into Pipedrive. We have it all in one place. And it's got a bunch of integrations, as these things should these days. So now we use this service called Pipedrive. And yeah, it is super enterprisey, and it's super businessy, and it has tons of buzzwords. But it also it's really powerful, and the iOS apps are pretty good. And yeah.
There is a sales pipeline academy that you can
take. I've been to the academy. I got my diploma. It's hanging on my wall. So there we go.
Nice. It looks nice though.
Yeah, I don't recommend this to like 99.5% of the people that are listening, because you're just not going to need it. But if you hear this and you're like, "Ooh, I need that," then you should get it, because it's really good.
That integrates with Slack, just like Trello did. Slack is like headquarters for Relay FM. All of our hosts are in there. We have a paid account, so we get all the bunch of paid goodies, and it's really like the office, like Slack is work. We use Google Suite for our email and calendar stuff.
I think you'll find it's G Suite.
G Suite. What did I say? Google
Suite. Yeah, you gave it a good name.
Their naming is terrible.
So bad. G Suite.
G Suite, formerly known as Google Apps. Mm-hmm. So it's great. Works just like Gmail. The website is hosted at Heroku. Our website is a custom CMS. We do use Squarespace, also a sponsor, for our blog and merchandise store. But Heroku hosts the website and our custom CMS. The MP3 files are at Libsyn. And we use Linode, which is another sponsor, to host our... So we have an ad tracking software.
It's Linode. I'm happy to report that it's actually Linode. I found this out after they started sponsoring, and everyone was calling it Linode, and we had to change that. So it's Linode.
Linode.
Mm-hmm.
Linode. So what else? So they host some stuff, and then we use Memberful and Campaign Monitor for our membership program. Memberful is what I also use at 5 Pixels. Is what Federico uses at Mac Stories. It's super great if you need a membership. It kind of does everything out of the box you would need. And then we use Dropbox to move files around. We have a Mac Mini at Mac Stadium in Las Vegas, and there's a Dropbox Pro account that's signed in on that Mac Mini, and it syncs everything as a backup. That machine gets backed up by Backblaze. And then we also have the Adobe Creative Suite, which we really don't need for work except for Audition, which Mike and I both edit in Logic. I think he's happier there than I am, but we use Audition for a lot of noise cancellation and equalization stuff. It's better than what Logic does. And so at least when I'm editing, I do pre-flight stuff in Audition. And if I have time, I'm slowly learning to edit in Audition. That's a complicated task to learn. But at the very least, I'll kind of take care of some tracks and clean them up, and then assemble in Logic. So you pay for Adobe Creative Suite, and you get Audition as one of the apps. And so yeah, a lot of moving parts here, a lot of cloud services. I didn't really realize how many things we were using until I wrote them down. But I feel like everything is on that list for a reason, and I think that we're working slowly to simplify, like moving away from Trello into something more specialized. And for us, anytime we look at a service, we feel like we need to be able to trust the company. They're not going to go out of business, right? That we are investing in something that's going to be stable and be around. We want something that has good iOS support. So that was a huge deal with Pipedrive. That sales management and a CRM would have a really good iPhone and iPad app, and Pipedrive does that. And then we want something that we can, I guess, is flexible enough to deal with the fact that Mike and I are sort of across the world from each other. So something that is, we can kind of put data in and hand off to somebody else. It's kind of fuzzy to talk about, but some of these services are really designed for like one person to sit down and do something, and we want everything we do to be collaborative to a degree. So
yeah, because we're a growing company now. Like it's not we are. Yeah, people that listen to other shows notice it's not just me and Steven anymore. We have someone to help us, so we need to be able to provide that sort of stuff as well. I should say, like G Suite is huge. Like all the Google Docs and Sheets and all that stuff. Like that's all tied up inside of that. Like we use that for so much stuff collaboratively.
Yes, and we should say that our assistant who's helping us found Pipedrive. It was one of their first tasks. Like, we need a tool that does this, and they went and found it, and it was awesome.
So at Mac Stories, besides coffee, of course,
puppies,
we use a lot of services as well, and some of these are for my personal usage, and others are more like collaborative services where we have multiple users. But I still feel like both individual and team-based software is still part of work stuff that I pay for or that we use. So the main glue between everything, I would say, is Zapier, and we use that for both my personal workflows and other stuff that the team can also enjoy. And it connects all of these little pieces that we need. For example, we use Zapier when a new issue of the Club Mac Stories newsletter goes out. Zapier, for example, can tweet with the Club Mac Stories account that a new issue has been sent, and it also posts on Slack a message. And that message contains a link to run a workflow and archive the issue as a PDF. So anyone on the Mac Stories and the Club Mac Stories channel can archive a PDF of the newsletter if they want to have a hard copy for the future. And it also, Zapier does a bunch of stuff for me and for others. For example, it puts tasks in my to-do list, which is Todoist, to publish articles on Mac Stories, and we have it does a lot that is hard to describe because it's very custom to us, but in terms of automation, it is essential. So as I said, Todoist is the task manager that I use and that we also use as a team. We have a bunch of collaborative projects where we create those for both for the whole year and also for specific projects that are time sensitive. And Slack, we have a paid Slack account because we want all of the integrations and some of the premium features that Slack offers. And we take advantage of the integrations between Slack and Todoist to do stuff like when we're talking to each other, we can easily create a task just by using the / command. And of course, Slack has a bunch of other features like it can import links and preview them. It can preview Google Docs stuff. So it's super nice. But truly, the big change that we're making to the way that we work is the Storybot. I talked about the Storybot, I think, a few months ago. And at that time, we only had one feature, which was the ability to create and complete article assignment requests. So it is a way for me, both from Slack and from Workflow, because Storybot is an API, it is a way for me to say, I found this news on the web and I want you guys to write about it on Mac Stories. Over the past couple of months, we have enhanced this feature with the ability to self-assign a story. So someone can say, well, I'm working on this. It's assigned to myself. You guys should not touch this because I'm handling this. So there's now the ability to self-assign. But we also rolled out another feature, and we're almost completing the third feature of Storybot. So the second one is called the emoji reactions. And those are really the same emoji reactions of Slack, but with a twist. So in every channel where Storybot is present, we can assign an emoji reaction to a specific Todoist project and a specific due date. So when we're talking to each other, we can react with an emoji, and that Slack message will become a task in a specific project with a preset due date. So for example, my Dart emoji on Slack is assigned to the Mac Stories project with due date in 1 hour. So when I'm talking to someone about a Mac Stories task, I can just react with the Dart and it'll go straight to my Todoist thanks to the Storybot.
I like a Dart. A Dart is good for that, I think. I like that.
Yeah, it's great. And I have
would have used the screaming guy if you need an article done in an hour, but that's just me.
And the third feature that we're almost completing, this is a great one. We have made Storybot integrate with Google Drive. And there's going to be 2 features initially, which is the first feature is Storybot will be able to list our Google Docs, and it'll be able to extract from any Google document every URL in the document and offer you a list of every link that you have in a Google Doc. And that list can be a plain text list of links or a markdown list. And that is going to be super convenient for us to put together the show notes for App Stories. Because instead of doing a bunch of copy and paste, we can just run a command in Slack or via workflow to return a list of links in like 2 seconds from a Google Doc. And this was super difficult to put together because Google has some crazy authentication stuff going on. But thankfully, we were able to roll out this custom solution. And the second feature also for Google Docs will be an append functionalities. So from workflow on iOS, if you want to append, a link or some text to an existing Google Doc, Storybot will be able to do that. So that's going to be useful. And then I have a list of services that are mostly match what you guys use for Relay. There's Memberful for Club Mac Stories, Libsyn for App Stories, G Suite, of course, Dropbox. We use GitHub to share markdown articles, together and check out each other's typos. Trello, we're still big on Trello.
I should say we use GitHub too for web and CMS development.
Yep.
It's always funny when we're going through this whole programmer debate thing that people were finding that I have a GitHub account, and that's why. It's like to post issues, right? I believe that's what it's called. Issues.
That's
I
good.
post a lot of issues.
Hey, I found this broken. Please fix it.
Most of the time, honestly, I just text them to Stephen and let him post them.
That is mostly what happens.
Yeah.
I assign them as if they come from you, though. It's good.
That's good.
So yeah, we're still big on Trello. Toggle. I use it both personally for time tracking and also with Ryan to sort of keep an eye on what he's working on and sort of how much time he logs every week. And I'm using personally Numbers and iCloud for spreadsheets for my accounting, but in terms of invoicing and sending invoices to sponsors and stuff like that, John uses Invoicely, which is a nice looking service that works for both euros and dollars, which was necessary for me. It integrates with Stripe, so it's got all these little touches that I needed. And finally, I need to mention I pay for Rackspace, the CDN, and Kraken, which is Kraken.io. It is an image optimization service. I've been using this too for years. And in fact, we also have a custom web app that provides image uploads for the Mac Stories team with Rackspace and image optimization built in. It's callable via workflow, of course.
Naturally.
So yeah, this is all. It's a bunch of different services, but they work really well, and it's worth it.
So for 512 pixels, it's obviously a much shorter list. I use FreshBooks for invoicing. I also do some consulting. I don't really ever talk about that, but that's all run through a FreshBooks account. I use G Suite for my email and docs and calendars and everything. Memberful now for the membership. And the site itself is hosted at WP Engine. It is a WordPress host where they sort of bake in and take care of a lot of stuff for you. So it is more expensive than like a bare bones WordPress install, but You get caching and everything out of the box. You don't have to do that yourself. And you can do backups, and you can do you can fork the site and have a development site. Lots of tools that you can do on your own, but I kind of wanted just one solution to do it all. And in my past job at a development design agency, we used WP Engine for some client projects, and I was really impressed. And so the site lives there. And I think that's about it. It's a pretty straightforward, GitHub for the theme and for the code and stuff, but it's a pretty straightforward little operation.
So basically all of my business, probably like 100% of my business is Relay FM stuff. So like all the things that Stephen mentioned, it's basically all I do business-wise, but I do have like a small handful of things that I pay for with my own mythical company that exists, which is Zapier. I use Zapier for a bunch of stuff. I spoke about that in the past. Todoist for all of my tracking of tasks, and Toggle as well for my time tracking. I love Toggle. Toggle's so good, and I use that with our assistant as well, so we can manage their hours. So it's become a really good service for me recently. So I'm very happy about that, and I continue to evangelize Toggle to anybody that's thinking about time tracking. I think it can help you learn a lot about yourself, even if you don't necessarily use the billing stuff. Just it has helped me make some real good realizations about the way that I work, even though time tracking, I have learned, absolutely bores people to the point of complete distraction, and they will hate you if you keep talking about it. So I'm going to stop talking about it right now, but I made you try it anyway. So that's a lot of services. So if you started this week's show and wondered why there were 37 links in our show notes, that's why. If you want to find those show notes, you can go to relay.fm/connected/143. We are just a couple of weeks away now from WWDC. So we're all going to be there together. Next week, we'll probably do our kind of final thoughts and maybe some predictions running into the event. We're going to be doing the draft on Upgrade next week. Yeah. So that's going to be fun.
Next week's the last week before WWDC.
Yeah.
So only one more episode.
And me and Stephen realized when we were talking yesterday that we'll be recording the first ever full live, three of us in person, live, not with an audience, but the three of us in person episode of Connected. Because last year, it wasn't, right? Like we did the whole RelayCon thing. So this will be just the three of us sitting down with a table and just talking. So that's going to be nice. So you can look out for that great in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, join us next week, and we'll be talking about our final thoughts on WWDC leading up to it, and talking about some predictions and doing all the like. So you can find us online. Stephen is over at 512pixels.net. Go there and check out his new membership newsletter. He is at ISMH on Twitter. Federico is at macstories.net. He hosts a couple of shows on Relay FM and also App Stories as well. And he is at Viticci, VITICCI on Twitter. And I am at iMyke, IMYKE. Thank you to Encapsula and Blue Apron for helping support this week's episode. Also, go to our show notes and you'll be able to find out information about coming to see us and meet with us and see some cool music and support a great cause if you're at WWDC for the App Camp for Girls benefit. So please go and take a look and sign up for some tickets. We're going to be in London in like a week and a bit, me and Federico. So if you got a ticket for the London meetup, we look forward to seeing you. All right, then. Thank you so much for listening to this week's show. We'll be back next time. Until then, say goodbye, guys.
Arrivederci.
Adios.